Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we are diving right into the human brain to break down a condition that's all about communication, or miscommunication. We're talking about epilepsy, and we're going to explore what happens when the brain's incredibly delicate electrical signals get their wires crossed. So let's just start right there with that big question. Think about it. You have trillions of connections inside your brain, all firing away in this perfect, beautiful symphony. And then, out of nowhere, a chaotic surge of uncontrolled activity. What does that actually look like? And more importantly, why on earth does it even happen? All right, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to define what epilepsy actually is. Then we'll look at the huge variety of seizures. Spoiler alert, it's a wide spectrum. After that, we'll dive into the chemistry behind that electrical storm. Then we'll see how medications can retune the brain. And finally, we'll get into the real-world realities of managing the condition. Okay, first up, what exactly is epilepsy? Let's start from the very beginning and build a solid foundation. Now, there are a couple of keywords here that are absolutely crucial. Epilepsy isn't just about having a seizure. The magic word is unprovoked. This means the seizures just happen without some clear, immediate cause. And they often start from a very specific spot in the brain, a little cluster of super excitable neurons called a primary focus. You can almost picture it as the epicenter of that electrical storm. And this slide right here perfectly illustrates that difference. See, a provoked seizure is the brain's reaction to something external. A really high fever, not sleeping for days, or maybe alcohol withdrawal. But an unprovoked seizure, well, that's the real signature of epilepsy. It's the brain's own internal tendency to misfire. And that is the key distinction when it comes to getting a diagnosis. Okay, so a lot of us have a single image that pops into our heads when we hear the word seizure. But the reality? It is a vast and pretty surprising spectrum. So for instance, you've got something called an absent seizure. These can be so subtle. Somebody might just look like they're zoning out for a few seconds. Maybe their eyes blink really fast, and then just like that, they're back, with no clue anything even happened. These often start in childhood and can easily be mistaken for just daydreaming. And then on the complete opposite end of that spectrum, you have the tonic-clonic seizure. This is the one most people picture. A person loses consciousness, their muscles go rigid, that's the tonic part, and that's followed by rhythmic jerking, which is the clonic part. Afterwards, it's common to feel really confused and just exhausted. And believe me, the list goes on. There are focal seizures that just start in one little part of the brain. There are atonic seizures, which cause sudden loss of muscle tone, sometimes called drop attacks. Then you have myoclonic seizures, which are like these quick, shock-like jerks. And finally, there's the most serious of all, status epilepticus. This is a life-threatening emergency where a seizure goes on for way too long, or someone has multiple seizures without ever really recovering in between. So we've seen the what, but what about the why? Why does this happen? Let's dig into the actual chemistry behind this electrical storm in the brain. Okay, at its very core, it all boils down to this delicate dance between two chemical messengers. The best way to think about it is like a car. You've got glutamate, which is the brain's gas pedal. It's the excitatory signal that yells go to your neurons. And then you have GABA, which is the brake. It's the inhibitory signal that tells them to stop. So here's the bottom line. A seizure happens when that balance gets thrown completely out of whack. You either have way too much go from glutamate or just not enough stop from GABA. And the result of that imbalance is that chaotic, synchronized firing that we call a seizure. So now that we understand the problem, let's talk about the solution. How do medications actually work to retune the brain and get that delicate system back in sync? This table does a great job of laying out the different strategies. See, these anti-epileptic drugs are designed to target that exact imbalance we were just talking about. Some of them, like carbamazepine, work by blocking sodium channels, which is kind of like making the gas pedal less sensitive. Others, like benzodiazepines, directly power up GABA. They're essentially pushing harder on the brain's brake pedal. And then some do a little of both, attacking the problem from multiple angles. And what's really fascinating is just how specific these treatments can be. The kind of seizure a person has determines which medication they get. For example, ethosuximide is really only effective for those super subtle absent seizures we mentioned earlier. It's not a one-size-fits-all situation. In fact, using the wrong drug for the wrong seizure can actually make things worse. Which brings us to our last section, the day-to-day reality of managing epilepsy. It is so much more than just taking a pill. It's a really complex personal balancing act. Finding the right medication is a process because they all come with this other side of the coin, potential side effects. Things like dizziness, feeling totally wiped out, or nausea are pretty common. Some can even affect your thinking or cause weight gain, although there are exceptions like topramate, which can do the opposite. It's a constant trade-off. And some of those risks are incredibly serious. This highlights a rare but life-threatening reaction called Stevens-Johnson syndrome. It can be triggered by certain drugs and often starts with a rash, but it can quickly become a true medical emergency. And that's exactly why being under close medical supervision is so important. Managing the condition also means thinking about the long game. Using certain drugs for years and years can impact bone health and increase the risk for osteoporosis. So a proactive plan is really key. We're talking things like regularly checking bone density and taking supplements like vitamin D and calcium just to stay ahead of any potential problems. And treatment isn't always about a prescription. For some people, especially kids with really tough-to-control epilepsy, specific diets can make a huge difference. The most famous one is the high-fat, low-carb ketogenic diet, which has been shown to really help cut down how often seizures happen. So, as we wrap all this up, I want to leave you with this idea. With so many different types of seizures and dozens of medications that all work in different ways, the real challenge in treating epilepsy isn't just about stopping an electrical storm. It's about a deeply personal journey. The journey of finding the one specific key that fits the unique lock of each individual's brain.